permission to play. That's recording. Let me present. Alright, so this is where we are. So remember, basically what's happening so far is you have this girl growing up in the 1930s. She's living in Texas. Now, the one bad thing about this is the Texas is suffering from a severe drought. There's no water. So a lot of these people were farmers, and their crops are just useless. Um, we see that she's living with her mom and her father, and her mom's pregnant. And last chapter, we kind of see that she had invited to play piano for a recital. So that's basically where we're at. Again, I'll post this up when we're done. Permission to play. Sometimes when Ma's busy in the kitchen, or scrubbing, or doing wash, I can ask her something in such a way I annoy her just enough to get an answer, but not so much I get a no. Right, so she's being tactful here. She's realizes when she wants something, she has to ask for it in a certain way. I know whenever I wanted to ask something from my parents when I was young, I had to ask certain people at certain times, and otherwise I wouldn't get what I wanted. So she kind of figured that out herself. That's a way I've found of gaining what I want, by catching Ma off guard, especially when I'm after permission to play piano. Right out asking her is no good. She always gets testy about me playing, even though she's the one who truly taught me. Anyway, this time I caught her in the slow stirring of biscuits, her mind on other things. Maybe the baby growing inside her, I don't know. But anyhow, she was distracted enough. I was determined enough. This time I got just what I wanted: permission to play at the palace. So again, she was asked if she could play, and now her mom gave her permission. So she's going to do that little recital on stage. Now notice this chapter, the way it's structured. The author purposely made the lines of text look a certain way. When I point my fingers at the keys, the music springs straight out at me. Right hand playing notes sharp as tongues. That's an example of what? Right hand playing notes sharp as tongues. What is that an example of? It is a simile. Good job, Soto. Telling stories while the smooth, buttery rhythms back me up on the left. That's an example of personification, but it might be hard for you to see because it's broken into a couple lines. That's personification, right? So the hand telling stories, right? Hands can't tell stories. Folks sway in the palace aisles, grinning and stomping and out of breath, and the rest eye shining, finger snapping, feet tapping. It's the best I've ever felt. Playing hot piano, sizzling with Mad Dog. Remember Mad Dog's the boy who could sing. Swinging with the Black Mesa Boys, or on my own, crazy, pestering the keys. Right, so you see this girl's really into her playing, and they're kind of like the way that they write it almost kind of like shows like the whole back and forth, the whole swinging, the whole like, I don't know, like left right kind of thing going on here, kind of almost just showing that she's really enjoying herself. That is heaven. How supremely heaven playing piano can be, right? So she's really enjoying herself, and they're doing well, the two of them. All right, next chapter. Birthday for FDR. This book has a lot of parallels to the other book that we read. We talked about FDR when we were reading Bell Prater. Who's FDR? Who is FDR? Does anybody remember that? Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Who's that? Does anybody remember who FDR is? Any idea? Nope. Alright, so Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the President of the United States. Probably one of the most popular presidents of all time. He basically took the country out of depression, right? So one of the worst depressions this country ever had, and then he led us through World War II, right? And then we wind up winning World War II. So he, if he didn't die, he probably would have been elected again. So after him, they changed the laws on how long the president could be. A president can only be president for 2 terms now, but he was elected multiple terms. I played so well on Wednesday night. Arlie put his arm across my shoulder. That's the guy who asked her to play, and asked me to come and perform at the president's birthday ball. Ma can't say no to this one. It's for President Roosevelt. Not that Mr. Roosevelt was actually be there, but the money collected at the ball, along with balls all over the country, will go, in the president's name, to the Warm Springs Foundation, where Mr. Roosevelt stayed once when he was sick. Um, so another thing very important about Roosevelt is he had a disease called polio, which is like a pandemic at that time too, right? So it's kind of like weird that there's all these like strange coincidences between this book and then like now. So polio killed like lots of people, like an insane amount, and it made a lot of people crippled. So um, FDR actually made it through polio, but he actually became paralyzed because of it. So he was like in a wheelchair for most of his presidency. Someday, I plan to play for President Franklin Delano Roosevelt himself. Maybe I'll go all the way to the White House in Washington, D.C. In the meantime, it's pretty nice. Arlie asked me to play twice for Joyce City. So there's a little bit of rhyming going on here at the end, too. I don't know if you noticed that. Nice and twice rhyming and DC City kind of rhyming. It's like a little bit of rhyme she put in there purposely. All right, so next one. Not too much to ask. We haven't had a good crop in 3 years, not since the bounty of 31. Bounty means like a lot. So again, this is during the Dust Bowl, during the Depression. There's no water, there's a drought. So they haven't had good crops. And again, farmers, they make their money from selling the crops. So if the crops aren't growing, it's like terrible for them. We're all whittled down to the bone these days. That means they have nothing. Even Ma with her new round belly, but still. So again, even the mother who's pregnant is like skinny because they literally had like nothing. Um, when the committee came asking, Ma donated 3 jars of applesauce and some cured pork and a feed sack nightie she'd sewn for our coming baby. So they're poor, but there's a committee going around for like donations because again, this is during the Great Depression. People don't have any money, so they literally need donations for people so that they can eat. So, what does that reveal about the mom that she gave 3 jars of applesauce, cured pork, and a nightie? What does that tell you about them? What does this tell you about her mother? What does that tell you about mom? Yeah, that they're kind, right? So these people are like starving, but they're literally giving away food that they have just to help other people. Probably one of the biggest things is the fact that she gave away the thing that she made. She had like a handmade thing that she was making for the baby, and she gave that away, right? So that's pretty amazing. All right, so again, last chapter we're gonna look at Mr. Harley's money handling. It was Daddy's birthday, and Ma decided to bake him a cake. There wasn't money enough for anything like a real present. Ma sent me to fetch the extras with 50 cents she'd been hiding away. Don't go to Joyce City, Billy, she said. You can get what we need down at Harley's store. I slipped the coins into my sweater pocket, the pocket without the hole, thinking about how many sheets of new music 50 cents would buy. Again, there's another clue to how poor they are, that her clothes has holes in them. Now she wants to buy sheet music, right? So remember, um, this is obviously the 1930s. So if you wanted to learn how to play new music, they would be written on paper. So she wants that so that she can play more songs on her piano. Mr. Harley glared when the Wonder Bread door banged shut behind me. He squinted as I creaked across the wooden floor. Mr. Harley was in the habit of charging too much for his stale food. So stale means it's going bad. and he made bad change when he thought he could get away with it. All right, so if you look at the character of this guy, what kind of store owner is he? What do I know about him from his actions? Mr. Hardley. How can you describe him? Yeah, unfair. Not very nice, right? He's selling stale food for too high of a price, and he's trying to like shortchange people, which basically means like rip them off and not give them the correct change. I squinted back at him as I gave him Ma's order. Mr. Harley's been worse than normal since his attic filled with dust and collapsed under the weight. So again, the roof of his building is broken down, again, probably because they were getting like these severe dust storms. So now this guy's going to be even cheaper because he needs money to fix his building. He hired folks for the repairs and he argued over every nail and every little minute. The whole place took shoveling for days before he could open it again. And some stock was so bad it had to be thrown away. So this guy's losing money. Probably another reason why he would be like cheap and trying to rip people off. The stove clanked in the corner as Mr. Harley filled Ma's order. I could smell apples, ground coffee, and peppermint. I sorted through the pattern on the feed bags, sneezed dust, blew my nose. When Mr. Harley finished sacking my things, I paid the bill. And tucking the list in my pocket along with the change, I hurried home so Ma could bake the cake before Daddy came in. But after Ma emptied the sack, setting each packet out on the oilcloth, she counted her change, and I remembered with a sinking feeling that I hadn't kept an eye on Mr. Harley's money handling. And Mr. Harley had cheated again, so she is afraid that this guy ripped them off because he's known for it. She wasn't paying attention to the change she got back. Only this time he cheated himself, giving us 4 cents extra. So while Ma mixed the cake, I walked back to Mr. Harley's store, back through the dust, back through the Wonder Bread door. That's an example of repetition here. And thinking about the secondhand music in a moldy box at the shop in Joyce City Music I could have for 2 cents a sheet. I placed Mr. Harley's overpayment on the counter and turned back to head back home. So what did her mom make her do? What did her mother just make her do?
She made her go to the store and get back the extra change.
There you go. Yeah, so it's exactly what she did. Now this girl's hoping that she could use the money to buy music, but she just went back to the store and gave him back the correct change. Mr. Harley cleared his throat, and I wondered for a moment if he'd call me back to offer a piece of peppermint or pick me out a cat apple from the crate, but he didn't. And that's okay. Ma would have thrown a fit if I had taken a gift from him. All right, so you're going to answer 4 questions on Socrative. When you are done with that, you guys are going to continue working on your infographic and research. So that's basically what you are doing today. Those are you guys who lost connection.